toys, won't we, Shell Shocker?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hold Up, the show where we dive deep inside your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out to see if they truly hold up. Today, we're going to catch them all, and we're going to catch them all with our friend Kyle, who's back on the show.
Hey, welcome back, pal. We missed you so much.
Thanks. Wow. I can feel the sincerity or lack thereof dripping from your teeth.
Not at all. This is genuine.
Really good. That was a really good rebuttal.
I know.
Nice.
I know.
Did you
Very
listen
good.
to any of the episodes while you were gone to hear Andrew's nonsense and shit talking?
And did you hear Chase's ignorant babble about every topic he brings up?
Since I wasn't there to mitigate anything, it got out of hand. And if it wasn't for me, you all would be in a piss poor situation, which showed.
We're
And it's
still in
good.
a piss poor situation. It's just less pissy than the average bear.
But I appreciate the objectivity there, Kyle. Really do.
Yeah, I am the glue that holds your relationships and your life together. And if you forget that, then we got problems. But I did listen to bits and pieces, but we were on the cruise and it was very hard to get any kind of like cell service. We did get internet, but the internet was very hard to use.
Hey, let me ask you something about that cruise. Did you do any running on that ship?
I did.
Nice. How
I
was
ran
that?
about 70 miles that week, unfortunately, which is not a great idea.
How was that on the? Was it like deck 4 or something like that? You just run around the ship? What was the?
No, I mean, we were in the tropics, so it was incredibly hot. I only ran on there like 3 times out of the 8 days.
So you're on the treadmill, I guess.
I was running on the treadmill, which was a whole experience that I probably shouldn't have done because I don't know if you know, but when you're on a boat in the ocean, it does move.
Oh.
Damn.
Which does mean the treadmills also move.
Oh.
So it was like every time the ship would roll, which was frequently in the we had a lot of choppy weather, it would feel like you were going on the most like undulating path, and like you would run and your foot would go under you, but there wouldn't be any ground, so you would skip. It was a very strange feeling.
Ooh. Probably
yeah.
slightly dangerous for some injury, right?
Yeah, I have a little hamstring issue now because of that. So, yeah, but that's what Eric and I like to do. Eric and I like to do for vacation. We like to be active.
Yeah.
So it was good for that.
I'm
but it
happy
was
you're
hot as hell.
alive. I'm happy you didn't drown. I'm happy that you weren't abducted by pirates. So glad you're alive and back.
Well, congrats. We're glad you're back.
I thank you, but I don't believe you.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, that's fair.
fair.
I lie a lot. And then also,
You do.
Andrew, guess what country has been listening the most this week?
Would it be our friends and neighbors to the north?
It would be our friends and neighbors to the north.
Oh, Canada?
Oh, Canada.
Lovely country.
Lovely country.
Truly, that's not sarcasm. So.
No, I've been to Vancouver and Victoria. I haven't been all over Canada, which I would love to go to more places. But maybe we'll do a tour. Germany, then Canada. Thank you, everyone that's listening there.
And then Cuba?
That's right.
I think Cuba is on the list. But
Okay,
I
cool.
don't know.
Cool.
I don't know how
Offense.
censored our content is over there.
Not at all.
But speaking of censored, we watched Pokemon, the first movie. Oh,
Also, Mewtwo Strikes Back is also
In
in
the
the
US.
title.
Yeah.
That's why I texted you, because I didn't know if we were watching the same fucking movie.
No, it
because
is. I
what
think
is it?
that is just the
It's
U.S.
very-
title name, I guess.
It's dumb. It was incredibly misleading.
It was annoying, but we watched it, and here we are.
talking about it. It happened. It was a movie that we watched.
It was a huge movie back then.
It was.
I mean, this was one of those where I vividly remember like being in my seat watching it.
Well,
like,
And let's go ahead and talk about Pokemon.
Yeah,
as
there's
a
a lot.
whole.
There's a lot to
before we
unpack.
get into the movie, because the movie is just kind of like a little subsect of this whole entire Pokemon experience that we all had. So, Kyle, I'm going to start with you because I know Andrew's going to have the most to say on this topic because he is a Pokemon nerd.
I'm a Pokemon master.
He's a Pokemon master.
Come on.
Yeah.
Autism master.
Get the terminology right.
That's exactly what that is. But Kyle, I'm going to start with you. What do you remember about Pokemon? Did you have any of the cards? Did you play any of the games? What was your Pokemon experience as a kid?
I remember it existed. I was on the fringes of that because I wasn't really into Pokemon. I was a very big Dragon Ball child, Dragon Ball and Star Wars. So anything that was on Toonami, like I would watch Pokemon occasionally when it would come on, but like I wasn't a big WB kid. I was more of like a Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and then Discovery Channel, Animal Planet. So I wasn't too deep into it, but I do remember how big it was. Like it was huge back in the day, and just the cards and how much they're worth, and like kids just getting packs and packs and packs of cards to find one Pokemon, and how it was just a cultural phenomenon, honestly. I realized it back then, but I didn't really understand like too much of what the hype was about, because it was a fun show until I got the Game Boy game. I didn't understand. And I got the Game Boy game, and that kind of like really opened my eyes, because that was and still is like a top 10 game for me. I don't remember which one it was, but it was one of the first ones. And I remember playing that for about 6 months. And I would take my Game Boy into my room and hide it under my pillow and turn the sound off or really low and just play it until like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning as like a fourth or fifth grader. And I was deep into it. And I had a sparrow that turned into a pharaoh.
There you go.
And I got his peck up to like level 86 or something. And it didn't matter. It was just OP. And I murdered everybody. Don't think I beat the game, though, because there was a couple parts that I didn't understand. But that was the deepest I got was the actual Game Boy game that came out. But aside from that, like this movie, I remember seeing it. Don't remember too much about it. I remembered it being sad, and looking back on it, like, yeah, like it's a little sad, but it's not really, though. It's pretty much what you see is what you get.
And we're going to dive into that. There's a little bit more to unpack there. I don't know how much research you did on this movie, but I'll go into my experience with Pokemon before we get to the main event, which is Andrew. This is the only time in life he'll be a main event.
Correct.
Thank you for acknowledging it, at least.
You're welcome.
But I got caught up in the craze. I wasn't huge into Pokemon, I don't think, but I got caught up in the craze because it was very popular, and it seemed like everybody at school had the cards or the Game Boy games, which I never had any of the games. I never played any of the Pokemon games. I just watched the animated show with some friends after school, but I never had like this fascination with them. I just did it because it was like a fad, and I did have some of the cards and stuff. And I did remember watching a lot of the show. I remember a lot of like the Pokemon, certain ones, but I was never huge into it, and that fad didn't last that long. I think it was my 4th grade year, and then after that, I kind of like lost interest in it. And I never got into Dragon Ball Z or any of the other animes that got really popular at that time.
So you were a loser kid.
Yeah. No, I grew up is what it was.
Oh, is that what hipsters say? Okay.
Yeah,
Literally,
cool.
yes.
Fucking
That's what I would
nerd.
say it was.
No, I respect the Pokemon world. I respect what they built, and I respect the vastness of it and how it's had a lot of staying power.
It's I think the most successful like media franchise ever in terms of like highest grossing. Like more than Mickey Mouse and Friends, like more than Star Wars. Actually, Star Wars might have beat it at this point, but I think even most recently, Pokemon is still the highest grossing media franchise of all time.
Are people still buying cards, though?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Those are still very
Andrew
popular.
is, for sure.
I'm saying, like, I
don't
feel like that's got to be such a big
$5,000, but no.
revenue thing for them that, like, I don't even know if you can count them out.
No.
They've got to be at least top 3.
And they still have games. They have not stopped making the games. That's unfortunate, in my opinion, but we'll get into that in a second.
And I will say this, and Kyle, I think you can talk a little bit on this as well. What's amazing about Pokemon, and this may not be true, I didn't want to research it because I think this is more of how I see it from a nostalgia kick. Think about anime before Pokemon. Did that exist in the U.S. and like Western culture? It
not as much.
Yeah, right. Like it felt like some things trickled in, but Pokemon made anime popular.
And we're going to talk about that once we get to some box office numbers here in a few minutes. But there is definitely a significance to...
And we already know a little bit of the box office numbers, because if you were listening to our previous episode, we talked about top 10 highest grossing video game franchise. Yeah. We kind of know a little bit about that. But Japanese media didn't make it into the U.S. for a very long time due to like post-World War II traumatic events.
And also just like a cultural difference.
It's a huge cultural difference.
Yeah.
But now, like, it's fully in the U.S. Like the West or the
100%.
Western world gets a lot of the Japanese influence for a lot of good reasons,
and honestly, vice versa too. It's mutually shared in that regard.
And Japan got a lot of like cultural influence from the U.S. when the U.S. was governing them for that time in the late 40s, 50s.
There's a reason Japan's like one of our top 5 allies in the global market. Like it goes beyond just.
That's kind of the influence that happened after World War II when we were occupying Japan. A lot of that had to do with like Godzilla and what we were talking about with that a year ago. Like that's still pretty apparent with the import and export of especially media. When we're talking about like video games and stuff, like that's kind of like where we would know about it and see it the most would be not only the TV shows, but just like the video games that came out of there. And again, talking about the Pokemon video game and like how many Pokemon video games have there been? Like, would Smash Brothers even be the same thing without having Pokemon in there? There's a lot of different layers, but I think ultimately the biggest export when it comes to what we're talking about in the nostalgic ways, it's a lot of it has to do with those video games.
Yeah. The video games were the precipice of it all.
Right.
So I think that's a good leeway.
It is a video game movie, and it came as an anime too. And the U.S. fingerprints is all over this. But Andrew, tell us a little bit about your Pokemon childhood.
Yeah.
You were their target demographic.
I remember I got blue version with my purple Game Boy Color for like my sixth birthday, fifth birthday, something like that.
What's the difference between these colors? I have no clue.
What do you mean?
Like, what's blue version?
There's blue and red and yellow.
Yeah.
Originally it was red and green in Japanese.
Colors, but is that just the title of the game?
There are some Pokemon that aren't in one, and you pretty much need both of them if you want to like complete the Pokedex or whatever.
Brilliant marketing. That's how you market to children.
And it was also just like, what's your favorite color? Do you prefer blue or red? Or how about the special edition yellow version? And then you move on to next generation.
But were they the
Gold,
same
silver,
game?
It was essentially this. It was the exact same game.
Okay, just different Pokemon.
Not even, there was like 4 that you couldn't get in one, and then there were 4 that you could get in the other. Like it was pretty much the same game.
Did your mom say Pokemon? Did that piss you off too when she did it?
Probably. Game Boys and Pokemans was not that. Yeah. Also, the featured Pokemon, like on the cover, was different. With blue version, it was Blastoise. With red, it was Charizard. Green, the Japanese version, which I do have a copy of, was Venusaur, yes. And then, of course, yellow version was Pikachu. Yeah. Yellow was a little bit different, though. It was a special edition. The plot was still relatively the same, but there were bonuses and things that you could do in that you couldn't in red.
Though, like blue. Grand Theft Auto, you can go to a strip club.
For sure.
Pokemon strip club.
Yeah, you go to Celadon City, you go to the game corner, and you can rack up a bunch of debt and get thrown in jail.
I love that.
No, but I got blue version with my Game Boy Color when I was 6, and all my friends played the game. It was just mystifying for me as a young boy. Like, it just completely captured me. I went on and I played other generations. I played Silver, Gold, and Crystal, which is still my favorite generation. I went on to the 3rd. I played Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. I kind of stopped after. I did Diamond and Pearl, but then I got worn out with it because it was just New World.
Lot.
It was too many Pokemon. It was, originally 151, then it was 251, and then it was 300 and something, then 400. And I was just like, I can't keep track of them. And also, some of the new creations were just lame. Like the original 3 generations were creative, and you didn't question the creations. But the games were what brought me in. I love those games. I still love them. I play them from time to time. Every few months I'll get bored and I'll start a new campaign. I'll pull out my old Game Boy Color or SP and I will play, and I will start anew, and it still captures me. It never gets boring. There's also new simulators and like different like ROM hacks you can find that change the structure of the game and offer levels of difficulty. So I've done that, and again, it still captures me.
So you're really into this. Was a big thing for you.
And I collected the cards. I was spoiled, and my family and my aunts, and they got me packs upon packs upon packs to the point where I had every single of the original 150.
Do you still have those? Or
I do. I still have them. They're not worth much. There's a few that might be worth like 100 or so, just based on just based on, what quality they're in. But honestly, they don't have much worth. But it was still cool to have the original English 150. I didn't get Mew because Mew is like, just like in the games, dude, almost like rare you don't get Mew.
Yeah.
But
Erica had Mew, and we were watching this movie, and she told me the story of how she didn't give Izzy, her youngest sister, found out that she had that Pokemon, and Erica let her borrow it so she could go show a classmate, and the classmate convinced her to trade Mew for like a Charizard.
Oh wow!
And she never gave it back. So
hey, not bad. Actually, no, I think I did
not
get
bad.
Mew.
Not bad, as in like that kid just totally rifled that from her.
No, because Charizard is rare too. Charizard is one of the most sought after cards, and if you find a holographic, non-shadow Charizard, that is worth thousands. Literally thousands, like maybe 5,000, depending on like the quality. If it's mint condition, yeah, you could reach 10K. Like it is that sought after. I don't get that, and I don't get into the whole.
So you haven't spent $10,000 on an old anime card?
No, unfortunately.
Listen, if I'm going out to buy some of those, I'm not getting out of bed for less than 10,000.
No.
All right.
Yeah, it's gotta mean something to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to somebody else financially.
Yeah. For a little card.
I will also say I did watch the anime series. I didn't stay with that for multiple years, but before the movie and even after, I watched it. It wasn't like a religious watch, but I definitely watched it. I stayed up to date with the storyline and everything, and eventually I kind of wore out, but the games have never left me, and they never will. My love for Pokemon and that world is, it will never, I wouldn't say it will never be matched, but it will always be with me. Like I'll take that with me when I die. So
yeah, Kyle, we got some listeners out there that weren't a part of the Pokemon phase. How would you describe Pokemon to someone who's never seen it? What is Pokemon?
So Pokemon is a universe that humans live alongside of. I guess there are animals, but there are different kind of animals that we would know, and they're called Pokemon, and they all have special abilities, and they come from like water, fire, earth, Andrew?
ground.
Yeah. And then what's the green?
That would be grass type.
Grass type. So, and then there are other ones.
There's electric, there's ice, there's flying, normal, psychic, ghost, fighting.
All right, we're losing people by the minute.
Fire.
But the main ones that we need to, the
Ice.
main ones that had come out at the beginning were essentially those with a couple smattering of others. And these Pokemon, aka animals that have special magical abilities, essentially, they are in the natural world. Like you could encounter one here, there, and anywhere. And in this world, people collect and train their Pokemon to battle one another so that they can gain fame, fortune, and everything in between.
PETA's a very big fan of this.
Oh, they love this. PETA, if you're listening, nobody gives a shit. But essentially, these Pokemon people like that are catching these Pokemon get to the point where they're trainers of Pokemon, and the trainers make their own gyms, and to gain notoriety and clout, you go to different gyms to defeat the gym leaders with your Pokemon, so you can be the master of all the Pokemon, which it does say in the theme.
But you also want to collect them all or catch them all. You want to have your Pokédex filled up all the way. But
and that's kind of the world that you're living in. These animals are sentient. Some are really dumb. Like dumber than a blanket, like with
Psyduck.
Psyduck is horribly stupid.
It's all cute though. That's the
majority of them are pretty.
I mean, some of them, yes.
Yeah, they're all like. But
Pikachu
that's part of
is
cute.
The most cute thing you're ever gonna. It's like a cat
Mouse
mated with a
corgi.
Mouse. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of those, and they tug on the heartstrings. They're animated, and it's very child driven. Like a child would love that. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. I want one.
And it's the perfect thing, like I said, for children because you got to collect them all. You got to keep opening your parents' pockets and pouring those out.
It's very effective marketing, for sure. And that's kind of like the main driving force when it comes to how successful it got was how good the marketing was through all different media in that space. But Andrew, I'm sorry. It is pretty surface level. There's not a lot of deeper stuff going on.
I will say this, though. That leads me into what we were going to talk about with the U.S. adapting the scripts. and changing how the dubs went. And it's heavy in this movie.
Yeah.
So a lot of Japanese anime really derives from real life. There's a lot of metaphors, a lot of like stuff that happens.
Makes you think.
They're very deep, and sometimes they can be pretty dark. And Pokemon has a lot of like dark metaphors because it is based on like animal cruelty and what's ownership and what things exist for. And do they serve a purpose? And a lot of the U.S. like writers think that's like too much for children in the Western world, especially in this movie. They took a lot of liberties in rewriting the dub. And it happened with the Godzilla movies, too. Like, some of the dubs were rewritten for American audiences.
It is surface level.
It's a layer of propaganda that we in the United States didn't really realize that we were consuming as children or in general. That is pretty apparent now that it's just been whitewashed by our government and by our institutions so that we're getting spoon-fed the good stuff. That doesn't matter. It's a fun show about cute animal things. Yeah, what the fuck ever. They'll buy it. Just don't make it too complicated.
I do think it is whitewashed. There's still merit in its existence, and while it was a huge marketing ploy, I don't believe that is the root of it.
No,
so,
they created a universe and built it up and wrote these characters and stuff. We're just talking about it is the perfect storm.
100%.
The perfect storm for children, especially like us. I wasn't even the biggest Pokemon fan, but I had some of the cards. I watched the anime, bought some of the VHS tapes, because when they re-release in the U.S., what was it, through WB Kids?
Yeah.
Or 4Kids?
WB Kids, yeah.
Something like that, yeah. So, well, Andrew, let's talk about this movie now. Yeah. What kind of numbers did it do?
It was successful. It was pretty damn successful.
We kind of...
We hinted that in our previous little episode. I had a budget of $30 million, and that domestic opening earned all that back in some, 31.6. So it already made back the budget. But then domestic altogether...
So this is going to be a weird one. Is this domestic Japanese, or is this the this is the US version?
Okay. We'll include international as well for a complete worldwide. Domestic grossed 85.7 mil. International 77.9. And then for worldwide, that's a cool 163.6 million.
For a video game animated movie, that's insane.
And I want
from 99.
I want to talk about its significance in America and anime's significance in America. This is the highest grossing Japanese anime movie in American history. You can think of Spirited Away, you can think of Kiki's Delivery Service, and all of those that were really successful. They don't hold a candle to what Pokemon did in America.
Yeah, and it hit it at the right time.
Yep,
too.
I would say that this movie and just the anime series in general really ushered in a new wave of interest for Japanese manga and anime in general.
And that's what I was saying earlier is anime, it wasn't a big thing until Pokemon, and then you had like Digimon, you
had Yu-Gi-Oh, and that still all under the same umbrella. But then after that, that's when you start, hearing about things like One Punch Man or Naruto and things of that nature.
And now it's like so popular.
It's so popular. And if you don't watch, anime, then you're a loser.
Yeah,
honestly.
It's a cool thing to do.
Yeah. It's good stuff. It's not like it's a hipster thing. Like it's quality
and less censored than when we were kids Now it's like fully on and like it is the Japanese version.
It's just much more mature too. It really hits you in multiple areas.
Do you remember the soundtrack? Kyle, do you remember the soundtrack to this movie?
Oh,
I remember. I mean, if you're talking about like the opening, yes, I remember the opening to all of the shows and all of this. But like the soundtrack to this movie was not bad until a certain point that we'll get to.
And
that was the American sprinkle.
Really took me out of it.
What was funny is I had this soundtrack as a kid. I do remember that, and because this movie came out in November
of '99.
Yeah, and so for Christmas I got the soundtrack. And it had Britney Spears, NSYNC, 98 Degrees. It was like a pop explosion on that soundtrack.
98 Degrees. Nick Lachey.
Oh, my God.
Cincinnati native.
And I love that soundtrack. And I was like, oh, it's a banger of a soundtrack. And then I went and listened to it. It's total shit.
It's awful.
It's not god-awful.
And it does not fit with the movie.
They were just trying to capitalize. And
I'm sure Japanese executives were just fucking dying when they heard
hated a lot of this movie, and they hated the marketing in the U.S. over this movie. There's not a whole lot here, but we'll do our best to kind of give you an overview. Anyway, to start off, the movie that you can watch, it's Pokemon first movie. If you go to Amazon right now and type it in, it is the shortened cut. It doesn't have the short, what was it, Pikachu's Vacation?
Pikachu's Vacation, sadly. I wanted to see that.
Yeah, I wanted the whole experience. So this is a shorter runtime. When Warner Brothers purchased this movie, they, instead of just putting it out and dubbing it into U.S. markets, they rewrote a lot of it. And they edited the first part of it out. So where does this movie open, Andrew?
Some lab on some island. And I believe that you see a bunch of like dark faces and they're talking about what they've created. And it kind of pans to this creature in some tank that's hooked up to all these wires and whatnot. And they're talking about the creation of Mewtwo and what they've done to create this genetic masterpiece of a Pokemon. And
all powerful Pokemon.
All powerful. And then all of a sudden you just hear Mewtwo talking to himself. He's like, where am I? Who are all these people? Is this a dream? Is it real? And he's getting his senses. And
he's one of the only Pokemon, if not the only, right, that doesn't just say his name over and over again, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
he's the only one
that and Meowth, Team Rocket's, Jesse and James Meowth.
True, yeah.
It's just those two. The rest have their little cry, or they say their name over like, Dugong, Dugong. That one made me laugh. We'll get to that. But yeah, they're in a lab, and you had this dude named Dr. Fuji, who was a video game character. He was in the original. He wasn't Dr. Fuji. He was Mr. Fuji, and it wasn't exactly.
This is before he went back to school.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
It was actually, apparently the lore is he abandoned his position of Dr. Fuji because he didn't agree. He had like a moral awakening or whatever. But
moral awakening?
I mean, he was cloning Pokemon for Team Rocket or for ulterior motives, and he, you know,
it sounded like he just
back.
like left and went to the Florida Keys and married a guy named Mike.
The Dr. Fuji in the film is a very different character from the one in the video games. But regardless, Fuji is telling the screen and Mewtwo like who you are and what you've become. And Mewtwo is like, whoa, so I am just a creation, a mere experiment. And he fucking gets pissed and blows up the island and kills everyone. And
he like disappears them, doesn't he, Andrew? He doesn't, like when he holograms people or like when he lifts them up telekinetically or whatever, he has the option to like poof them.
I don't even know. I mean, he uses his psychic powers. It's not even...
It's very unclear, but all we know at this point is that he has some kind of psychic ability.
He is the strongest psychic Pokemon in the games, essentially. I wouldn't say in the games now, but the first 3 generations, he was like the strongest Pokemon there was.
And he's been created.
Yeah,
in
a
he
lab.
And he feels vengeful towards that. So I will say this opening scene
was different.
It was great because I think like the idea of creating a genetic experiment and it not knowing its purpose in life and thinking that it doesn't have a purpose because it was created as an experiment by men, I think that's heavy. Yeah. This is going to be an interesting ride. And then it tails off from there, but I've got to talk about the Japanese
They left
version.
out a lot of context in the American version.
So, Kyle, I don't know if you know this because this goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's all surface, right? So, in the Japanese version, the beginning of the movie starts with Mewtwo being created, and he's in this, like, stasis mode, but he meets this other little girl, this human girl that's also being genetically created.
Which is Dr. Fuji's daughter who had died. He was trying to bring her back to life. And
yeah.
he had successfully done that.
Right. He can connect through telekinesis with her. So they're growing up as clones together. And then the girl dies in the middle of all this. And Mewtwo starts crying, which we'll get to later. And she's like, don't cry. Being alive is what's important. It doesn't matter about what your existence is. And it's super heavy, super sorrowful.
And really creates a sense of ambiguity for the rest of the movie that the American version doesn't have.
And they thought that was too heavy for American audiences, so they pulled that whole scene. So you just see Mewtwo at the beginning of this. He's an asshole, and he destroys and kills everybody.
Yeah. And
that's pretty much... That's the depth of his character until the very end.
Yep. And then Giovanni just appears out of nowhere from his helicopter. Giovanni is the leader of Team Rocket, if you will. He goes all the way back to video games. He's kind of this like undercover mob boss type who's always around, but he shows up on this blown up island.
He looks like he wears cowboy boots to the casino.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of character he is. But he shows up to this island and he starts talking to Mewtwo. He's like, we can become partners. I can unleash your power and we can have a mutually beneficial relationship. And Mewtwo's still like not knowing who he is or what he's doing. He's like, okay, cool.
And just leaves.
Giovanni introduces him to Pokemon battling. And that's where Mewtwo is like, I have found my power, but what is my purpose? And that's at that point, he's battled an Onix, he's battled some other big Pokemon and just completely wiped the floor with them because he's just that powerful. And then he's connected to this armor that's Giovanni has created for him. I wouldn't say he's locked up, but Giovanni keeps his distance because he knows he's volatile and can't be trusted. And I don't remember what Giovanni says to him, but he's like, you have now found your power and your purpose will be great as you battle and serve me for the rest of time. And Mewtwo's like, what? We didn't agree upon this. I'm not your slave. I thought we were partners. And Giovanni's like, you'll do as I say, bitch. You're going to battle for the rest of time.
Which is a weird thing to say to something that could kill everything.
Yeah. And what does he do? He fucking explodes Giovanni's like lair, and Giovanni escapes as he always does. And that's when Mewtwo rebuilds that entire island that he was born in, creates his own lab.
In a matter of 14 days.
Yeah, he does it pretty quickly. And we're moving along here.
Who do you think he hired to construct all that?
I don't know.
What kind of contractors were going out to these, like...
He definitely broke union laws, that's for sure. So
the same ones they had for Jurassic Park.
Right,
there
exactly,
you go.
Yeah. And except you saw those guys working in the amber. We also were introduced to Mew during all this, which Mew is like the Pokemon that Mewtwo was created out of. And it's like a very...
Like the original Pokemon.
Yeah, he is like the all mysterious...
cutest little guy.
Origin.
He is a legendary. He is the OG, like a legendary Pokemon. And in the Japanese version, he's a big part of that first scene they cut. They find this Mew in some jungle or whatever, and then they create Mewtwo from Mew's DNA. It was like a fossil, I think, is what they found or something like that, which, again, goes back to the lore of the video games that you find in those games. But Americans didn't want that for whatever reason.
They cut so much out of this that would have made this movie. Anyway, continuing on. Kyle, who are we introduced to next? After we see all this and...
Mewtwo set up his lair and all is well in his world for the players.
International waters.
Now we meet the biggest, most recognizable character outside of the Pokemon is a human named Ash Ketchum.
Good old Ash.
And he is hanging out on a meadow on top of a cliff overlooking what I would assume is the Pacific Ocean. And this is one of those points, again, where I'm always drawn to like the aesthetics. It's a very well drawn, well animated scene. Very, just really pretty.
It's quintessential Pokemon. It's quintessential like the anime series.
But exactly. Well, it also reminds me there's a lot of scenes like that in Dragon Ball.
Yes.
In the Dragon Ball series where there's very beautiful visuals. And I think something that I was always drawn to was how well they did animate certain aspects of it. There are a couple points in this one, though, where it got the 90s treatment of too much CGI, and it was just a little too heavy.
It was kind of jarring because you got...
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was like in the original Japanese version or if that was something added in on the American.
I feel like it was probably in the original, just because like it was so expensive back then to just do it as a one-off that I think it would have just been baked into the original that they would have just worked around. But I do think that moment right there, there's a moment at the beginning and the end that are very similar to that. And I do think they at least had the artistic vision to bookend it that way. But Ash is out on this meadow with Misty, Brock, who are also Pokemon trainers who have their own gyms, which in the original, Ash has to beat them. And they all become a band of folk. And they all have their Pokemon, but they're all hanging out. And then some guy comes up to Ash and goes, "Are you Ash Ketchum from...
Pallet Town." Yeah.
From Pallet Town,
Indiana.
I am, and he's like, "I'm here to tell you you're going down." And he goes, "I'm afraid I tell you that you're going down." You're like, "Oh shit, they're gonna fuck each other up." So then they start battling Pokemon.
Can I make one comment real quickly? It was a pretty big moment for me as a kid because in this scene, that first Pokemon that trainer throws out is a Donphan, which was a second generation Pokemon that had not been introduced until this movie. So it was a big reveal moment of like, oh, that's a new Pokemon. and the new games were right around the corner. So it was very exciting for people who were curious as to what new mons would be introduced in the coming games. But this one, besides Togepi, was one of the first introductions to the second generation.
Interesting.
Yeah, but go on. That was just a little nugget that most people, such as yourself, wouldn't,
Andrew,
but
I bet that you knew every single one of the Pokemon's name when you were 7 or 8.
I still do.
He hasn't lost that. Yeah, that memory's still there and unlocked.
Yeah, I don't think
not
I could
like
go
not
through.
like we show you exactly. Not like we show you a picture. I bet you could get through at least half of them from memory alone.
I could. I don't know if I could go in the sequential order because that gets fuzzy, but I could name all of them. I absolutely could. So
wild.
Right. Good to know.
Anyways, they do that battle. Ash beats him, and
he beats him handily. He wipes the floor
with weaker Pokemon too, much weaker Pokemon.
But while they're battling, we get the song of our generation, Pokemon theme song, which is still a banger.
It's still great.
I will go ahead and stamp this right now. That holds
slaps.
up. Yeah, that holds up.
Slaps,
yeah.
man.
I want to lift to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a more drawn out version of that song, so they didn't have to fit it in a TV spot. So it was a little bit more epic.
There was a little bit more rock and roll to it.
Yeah. Had some more. Yeah. So if you're going to listen to that and you're going to start singing the one from the TV shows, you're going to be over pretty quick because that one lasts a lot longer because they had a lot more time, which was it was a pretty epic opening sequence for that.
Yeah, and at this point of the movie with Mewtwo and everything, I'm kind of in it. I love where the art's going of the genetic mutations and creationism and existential crisis that Mewtwo's going through. And it's not mentioned like it is in the Japanese version, but it is mentioned here, which I was like, that's pretty good material to work with. And then great animation, great theme song. I'm feeling myself at this point.
And then what happens next is, you see Mewtwo in his lair or whatever, and he sends out a messenger.
He's in the Death Star, is what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. He sends out a messenger Pokemon, which is a Dragonite. A dragon type. That's one we didn't talk about.
And he's like talking to the nurse. Right?
She's
brainwashed.
She's brainwashed.
Yeah, this human.
She's not brainwashed. She's been taken over by Mewtwo.
Her mind's been manipulated and controlled.
Because he's a psychic Pokemon, which is... Yeah. Is he the only psychic Pokemon that can manipulate people?
No, psychics... I mean... You don't see anyone besides Mewtwo manipulating humans, so I guess he's the only one that really dabbles that line. But there are others that potentially could have that capability, but that's not something that they usually get into in the games or the anime series. It would be a pretty
big existential thing, which is what this movie we start rolling into with this.
Yes, absolutely. But he talks to Nurse Joy or whatever the fuck she is, but the point is that
she's an RN. Have some respect.
She got a degree from a major university.
She went through COVID, so shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you're right. But long story short, Mewtwo sends out an invitation to a bunch of trainers across the globe because he is spying on them. He was spying on Ash through whatever psychic telescope or whatever.
And the nurse has asked, should I send the trainers the invite?
Yes.
And he's like, yes. So he sends out what'd you call it? The big dragon thing?
It's called a Dragonite. And Dragonite delivers the invitation. What would you even call that invitation? It's very like a Star. It's a Star Wars hologram invitation where the character's like, you've been invited to the battle of all battles against the greatest Pokemon master on the globe. Please check yes or... And Ash is like, well, yeah, of course I got to do it. And
what does Brock say?
I don't know. Oh, Brock is eternally horny.
That's what I was going to get into. Was he like that?
Yes, always. There are so many memes about Brock's horniness nowadays.
My God.
He goes, she's small but cute.
Yes.
It's like
he's small but pretty.
That dude thought with his dick from the start.
I was like, that's a hologram, Brock.
Yes.
I guess there are worse ways to get after it. I don't know.
There are so many memes about Brock just like glazing over women.
This is not the only time in this movie either.
No, he does it consistently, like 3 or 4 more times.
Does not pass the Bechdel test.
It doesn't, but it's funny. And he never opens his eyes either. There actually is a moment in the series where he opens his eyes and like cries. And it's such a groundbreaking, memeable moment that real fans like go to this day.
It because he kissed a lady?
It could have been. I actually don't remember what it was, but in one episode he opens his fucking eyes and it was groundbreaking.
It's such a petty line. Like, I'm glad it was in there because this movie's a little too much Ash and like Team Rocket and not enough like everybody else, I think. But like I was glad that he got a little something for his character in there, even though it was very base and silly.
Brock's a loser, but
he is. And speaking of Team Rocket, they're there on the island too,
spying.
Because what are they trying to? They're trying to capture Pikachu the whole time.
That's what they're trying to do since the very beginning.
That's the only reason they exist. They're trying to capture Pikachu for that Giovanni guy.
They're stupid too.
They're dumb as shit. They have this cat with
Meowth.
With them.
His name's Meowth.
That can talk. And
Meowth.
But how does he talk though? What does he talk?
I'm Meowth.
I'm Meowth. He's like the opposite of Snarf. Like. He's a more annoying, like, Snarf character.
And he's dumb, too.
He's like, oh, man, I wish I would have thought about that. He always makes a freaking cat reference. He's like, that's crazy. Are you from Catmandu?
I think at the end he made a joke like, that's clawful. And I was like, oh, God.
He also said, I'm going to get on a catamaran.
Yes. And he, like, emphasized the cats.
Yeah. And
catamaran.
Cuts away.
I wish I could get some catnip right now. It's like really phoned in. It's so bad.
Lot to dissect with this plot here. We're doing a great job.
And that's it for plot after this.
Yeah,
so,
pretty much.
We just pretty much summed up the movie for you. But obviously Ash is going to go and battle the best Pokemon master of all time. And he convinces his friends to go, even though they're kind of a little weary. Then they get to like this...
It's a ferry station.
This ferry station.
Because they have to go to New Island, which is where Mewtwo is located.
New Island.
Sorry, we don't even know it's Mewtwo. It's just the greatest master of all time.
Yeah. And there's thousands of Pokemon trainers there, I would assume.
Yeah.
And they're all in the station, and there's these two Nimrod.
Officer Jenny. She's actually a big part of Pokemon lore. She's like the main police officer. It's so iconic, though. She sounds the same throughout the entire series.
It's so bad.
It's listening to it now. It's like, oh, God, how did we put up with that? But you accept it. And then the other woman, Natasha, I don't remember who she was, but she was a part of the series at some point, too.
And they're like, the nurse is missing. And it's like, oh, we know where she is as an audience. So, and Brock's like looking at a picture of the nurse. He's like, she's hot. And
she looks familiar.
So,
but yeah, he gets a horn on about that one too.
He's got 3 lines in the movie, and I think all of that is referencing
and a constant erection, but you don't see it because it's very small.
Yeah, no, he's got his hands in his pockets.
You're right. But they're at this station, this ferry station, waiting to be ferried across the water, and Nurse Joy and Natasha come in. They're like, "There's a bad storm coming," and it's just so, I don't know, anticlimactic because Mewtwo has created this awful storm.
He did that, I'm assuming, to like weed out.
It was a test.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you have this fat guy that comes out of nowhere and he's like, well, my Pokemon have evolved to get me across the water.
No, he says, I've got water Pokemon. I can ride him across those waves. And he does that.
And the other wise. And the other chick, I don't remember what she does.
She has a water Pokemon too. She's got a Dugong.
And
Dugong.
Some of these Pokemon and their trainers drown and die. And then,
do they?
Yeah. And then some make it across. The reason that Ash makes it across is because Team Rocket shows up as Vikings.
Yeah.
And make a horrible joke about Vikings all being from Minnesota.
Yes.
I thought it was pretty clever.
Did you?
I laughed.
I thought they only existed in Minnesota.
No, I rolled my eyes very hard.
Yeah.
But that doesn't even get them across because like the waves are too big and they're in this tiny wooden boat and it fucking capsizes. And then Ash has to rely on his Squirtle and Misty relies on her Staryu, which he has a very weird cry if you recall that. But I can't even do it. But then they just ride their Pokemon to New Island and that's that.
There it is.
Yeah.
We're there.
Neato. We're at the next point.
And everybody's like in the lobby of this massive castle,
but also like lab
it's
warehouse.
Like I think it's a Hilton.
Yeah.
Marriott.
I think it's a Marriott. Yeah.
It's La Quinta.
Oh, was it La Quinta?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's not. This episode's sponsored by La Quinta Inn. Please sponsor us.
Don't forget to get the Costco breakfast. It's great. So essentially, there's the 3 Pokemon trainers plus Ash and his folk that make it. And we find out very quickly that like they're all very full of themselves and they start trying to battle each other. Then
they're all arrogant pricks. It would be very hard to be in that room with all those people.
Yes, and they're all like scum of the earth kind of people, like that are
Hey,
Like,
they're just
the kind of
competitive
people-
folk. Come on, man.
They're the kind of people that talk on their phone on speaker out loud in a grocery store.
Or a
Like,
gym.
Or no, they FaceTime everybody that they talk to, and then they do that in public.
Oh, my God.
They're the kind of people that need like 15 items, pre-workout powder, and everything else just to set foot in the gym.
None of those guys worked out.
Well, they are not very likable, but and that gets exploited even more in a second because Mewtwo like comes down from like the heavens and introduces himself, and they're like, "Well, I thought you were a Pokemon master."
Yeah, I was like, there was a perfectly good escalator next to him, but
He just floated down.
yeah. To make a grand entrance, and he's like, I'll fuck all you up.
Yeah, and this one loudmouth is like, I'm gonna sick my Rhyhorn on you. Go, Rhyhorn! And he like sends him in a fury,
and then
Mewtwo just
rips
like
its heart out and eats it.
Yes, yeah. He psychically picks him up, opens his chest, psychically pulls his heart out, and has it,
Devours it in front of everybody.
Yeah. And
What
then
Andrew's saying is that would have been a better scene than what we got. He just throws him away
into like the water
into
or
the
whatever.
water.
But then it's revealed that like he is the one that brought them all there, and he is the master Pokemon trainer. But is that when the guy, the big character, human, is wait, you're a Pokemon? Pokemon can't be trainers of Pokemon. And then he flips out and has this whole racist like moment, like bigoted moment in his head, which I thought was like, that's something to explore right there.
Yeah, that is what happened. It was that same dude, and that's what sets Mewtwo off. He's like, you humans, you think you blah 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 are so much better than us, but you're swine. He didn't say that, but it's something of the sort.
Yeah, and he's like, you don't understand these Pokemon. They do all your bidding for you, kind of thing. And then again, good plot, good. We got it going, and then it just stops.
Evaporates.
Well, Mewtwo pretty much unveils his mastermind plan right off the bat. You don't deserve Pokemon. I'm going to kill your Pokemon, but clone them and run off with them and start a new world and destroy the world that you live in currently. That's exactly what he wanted to do.
Basically, his existence now is to just murder everybody and create the ultimate powerful Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because that's what he was created for.
And at this point, they're like, clones? What clones? And then Mewtwo moves them out into like the Pokemon battlefield, and then he introduces...
Which is weird because
it's just a soccer field.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like you got this nice ass like castle that's like state of the art, and then he just opens the door and it's just this ratty ass field that looks like it hadn't been mowed.
That's what all battlefields kind of look like, whether you're in a gym or the Elite Four or whatever. That is like the quintessential Pokemon battlefield.
He didn't even turn the lights on in that room. It looked like shit.
Yeah.
Like comparative to the rest, it looked like he took them out back into a grass field in Nebraska and was like, "Here, battle here."
With like
bitch.
a high school like stadium, like seating around.
The bleachers are half collapsed.
Yeah, but
half of them are wooden.
We're gonna move along quickly here because there's really not much
We're
more
already
to
like
explore.
halfway through the
We're
movie.
more than halfway, but at this point, he's talking about the cloning and all of the trainers. Ash, Misty, Brock are like, "What cloning? You can't do that." And he's like, "Yes, I can. I'm making the Pokemon stronger and better." And he decides to show them Blastoise clone, Venusaur clone, and Charizard clone. And there happened to be a real Charizard, real Venusaur, and real Blastoise in the group of trainers. And they try to pit the types against each other, and the clones win handily because they are superior.
And you can tell the clones because they have the markings on them. There.
Andrew, you might be able to lend more light into this. This was a story hole for me. Because why are the same types fighting the same types? Wouldn't their attacks be less effective on the same type? Why wouldn't they pit each other against like a water type versus a fire type, or a psychic type versus a ground type? Like,
you have a point, but I think it was just more of a metaphorical.
I think he was just trying to show that this clone type is more powerful.
This clone Charizard's better than your Charizard.
Yeah,
this clone Blastoise is better than your Blastoise, or Shell Shock, or whatever the fuck she nicknamed her Pokemon. Fucking lame. I think the Venusaur was like Boo Boo or something like that. I was like, what names? Like
terrible.
Boo
Boo. Go, Boo Boo, go.
But at this point, the clones are the regular Pokemon. The Blastoise, Venusaur, Charizard, they're no match for the clones. And at this point, Mewtwo deploys all of his lab-made psychic Pokeballs and captures all of the Pokemon in the gymnasium, if you will. And he takes them down to his lab that's currently being investigated by Jesse, James, and Meowth because they've been tailing Ash the entire time. They're the ones who've discovered the cloning lab first. Mew's been with them, kind of tailing them as well because Mew's curious and doesn't like what's happening or whatever.
And Mew's there the whole time, and no one sees him.
Yeah, he's in the shadows, just kind of lurking.
Just kind of catching everything.
Surveying shit.
As he's catching all the Pokemon with these black Pokeballs, he sends them down into the chute so they can put them in their stasis chambers, cloning machines. And as he's doing that, Pikachu gets captured after a long running scene where Ash was running up a steep incline.
It wasn't even spiral stairs, but it was just a spiral I don't even know what you call that.
Yeah,
thing,
it's an arbitrary artifice that was made solely for this moment in this, the engineering of this building. When they made it, they're like, I bet in the future there's going to be a chase, and we must have something that adds to the chase and makes tension. So we'll have to build a spiral thing up to the sky that doesn't really go anywhere. We don't really know where it goes. It was a really good scene though. It was well paced out, and it was very tense and
it shows
Pikachu get caught.
It shows that Pikachu is special. Yes, he does get caught, but he is the last one.
He's able to fight off so many of those Pokemon, and then he just gets overwhelmed.
Yeah, and he gets tired.
Yeah, and then his Pokeball falls into the chute, and Ash jumps for him. And so Ash goes down the chute with the Pokeball. So while Team Rocket's sitting there going, all this machinery, what are they doing with all this machinery? You see the Pikachu coming through. And as you see it, the silhouette of the Pokemon flash on the screen, and I got so tired of them going, "What Pokemon is that? That's
I know, but that
Pikachu."
That was I know, but it was okay. I agree that it got a little overdone, but the first 2 times I did it, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
I mean that Who's That Pokemon is a nod to the TV show because every time a new Pokemon was introduced, they would show the shadow of it with this red background. It was like, who's that Pokemon? And you would have to guess.
Pikachu.
And then once you came back from commercial break, they'd be like, it's Scyther! And they would show the actual Pokemon. I want to say a few things. In the American dub, they got some of the Pokemon wrong. They mixed up an Alakazam and Scyther in that moment. And those are 2 very different Pokemon. It was just a bad... You wouldn't even
tell
call
by
it.
The people reading this script, they were doing it at home while they were drinking Jim Beam.
Oh, that's a major typo. Typo is even putting it lightly. You can't fuck that up. And then earlier, a few scenes prior, I told Chase this before we started recording. One of the cocky trainers refers to his Pidgeot as a Pidgeotto. To anyone who knows what Pokemon are or what a Pokemon is, you know that is not a Pidgeotto. It's a fucking Pidgeot. That's the 3rd evolution. You can't get that wrong. So shame on the editors.
Pidgeot is not as good as Pharaoh ever.
That's debatable. I would actually say you were right, but depends on how you build them up.
That's a different topic for a different day. Yeah.
Topic for now. I've been waiting to talk about this for years.
Well, you're gonna wait more years. Pikachu is captured. Team Rocket sees it, and this is probably their chance to get Pikachu. And then Ash comes through, and he grabs the Pokeball as he's going through this machine. And how he's not torn to pieces by this piece of machinery is beyond me. So it's this sorting machine, and Ash somehow breaks it and is able to get the Pokeball out and free Pikachu.
Indeed.
And
this is when all hell starts breaking loose because all the copies get put out of these Pokemon. Then all the Pokemon break free as well.
Yes.
Now we've set ourselves up for this big battle on the actual big battlefield. It's an epic, it's going to be an epic arena fight. And they're going to all battle each other the same type as one another. But this is where we start getting into the climax of everything.
Yeah, and this is a big scene. So moving forward to the battling, all the Pokemon are battling. Mew is battling Mewtwo at this point.
But the clones are battling their inverse.
Right. And you see that, and then all of a sudden, and this is a Western audience thing. This did not release in the Japanese version.
Oh, God.
They start going into this anti-violence message because they're all like, they're Pokemon. They don't want to fight. They're fighting.
How do they do it? But
how do they do it, Chase?
They go around the arena to all the trainers and the people there, and they're just giving you the exposition.
It's so stupid and conflicting because the whole point of Pokemon is to battle your mons and advance and create the ultimate team and party. It's not about the violence because in the games and whatnot,
it's not really violence though because nobody's actually. It's happening in an honorable way, in a way that's structured. It's not like hateful violence against a group of people or like death. It's because they're fighting.
Their entire structure and culture is based around battling their Pokemon. And it's just one of those things. So why are you trying to make it immoral now? It never made sense.
And it did make sense with the rest of the movie because at this point, it's still supposed to be about existential crisis and what's your purpose in life. And that's what the original script were. But Warner Brothers decided to write this entire script, and it does not match tonally the rest of the movie. This tone is just completely shifted. It throws you off and throws you into a grinder of a emotional thought. Like you're like, this is stupid. No wonder Toho hated this because you're shitting on the entire thing that makes Pokemon exist. And so they get this battle going, and it's like anti-violence speech through every character. And Mew and Mewtwo are battling. And Ash is like, no, stop fighting. You shouldn't fight. Even though I'm a Pokemon trainer, I've been doing this for a long time, and I came here to fight. But don't fight. No, don't fight. And he jumps in the middle of their battle as they shoot these, like, powerful rays, I guess, out.
I don't know.
And Ash just collapses in a heap and turns to stone.
Yeah.
Thankfully. At least there was some level to this movie that there was some sense of sacrifice or risk or what have you. But
think about the Japanese version of this movie. So at Mewtwo at the beginning, he understands that he's just a clone, and he has this existential crisis of like, why do I exist? I'm just an experiment. And the little girl that dies in front of him tells him, no, you're alive. Be thankful for being alive. And then we have this whole rewritten scene at the end, but in the Japanese version, it's more or less like purpose, right? And so Ash sacrifices himself, which makes sense in that world. It doesn't really make sense here other than, like, this is what violence caused. You caused Ash to turn to stone. Honestly, I was okay with it because he stopped talking. But he goes down. Pikachu walks over, starts crying, and it's very sad
scene.
The music's
Erica started sobbing when that happened. She started welling up and tearing up. And
I mean, that was a sad moment, especially when you were 7 years old. Like
7 years old.
It's probably one of the best moments of the film, though. I would say it's the redeeming quality of this film, if there is one.
Well, Pikachu starts crying, and then all the other Pokemon, including the clones, start crying, and their tears collectively come together
and save him. Somehow, and it makes no sense.
It brings Ash back to life.
This version is just like, that Pokemon loves that guy, and that guy sacrificed himself for the Pokemon. So maybe we shouldn't fight. Maybe we're all the same. And Mewtwo just ends his plot to destroy the world and just leaves.
And he has that famous quote that, again, it's applicable, but like not really for the
version we saw
or the story. Yeah. He says, I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are.
Which fits with the Japanese version, and it does not any sense
with the American. Yeah, so, it falls so flat. It's like, okay, so that's neat, but
that's our fourth tonal shift in this entire movie.
Yeah.
And then that's it. That's pretty much it. They end up like, it's over.
But what happens is,
thank God,
Mewtwo starts to fly off. He takes the clone Pokemon with him, flying into the skies, and they're all kind of watching below, and Mewtwo says out to him,
Mewtwo believes in Scientology, and he was just going to the mothership.
This was all a big Ponzi scheme, clearly.
He's just going to euthanize all of them when it's done.
And he literally says, I think the events of today are best forgotten. And all of a sudden, things kind of fade away, and Ash and Misty and Brock are back in that ferry station. They're like, how do we get here? What's happening? And Misty says, like, I think we're just here because we're here. And the storm magically stops.
Doesn't Brock even say, the women here are pretty, or something like that?
Something like that.
So we got to get him another line.
And the storm stops, and that's pretty much it. And then we pan to Jesse, James, and Meowth on some, like, bare island. Like, how do we get here? Oh, wait, this is paradise. Oh, do you have some sunscreen? And then Meowth makes that stupid line about the catamaran, and that's the end of the fucking movie.
That's it.
Yeah. That's literally
that's
it.
Pokemon, the first movie.
We wasted too much time getting to this point.
I call it Pokemon, the first disaster. So
tell us how you really feel.
It'll get there. So let's start with you, Kyle. This movie when you were a kid versus this movie now.
I don't remember watching this as a child. I remember I did watch it and it was sad, but I remember it being happy at the end. And it's kind of like Great Mouse Detective, where it's like, you're like, oh, that's right. That movie was lit because this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, but it doesn't happen the way you think it does. And it's empty. It's an empty shell of a movie, in my opinion. It has a couple of shining moments, but most of it is just, I don't know. The other media do more justice than this movie did. And looking back on it, this is a money grab that they did a really good job on.
Andrew said it best. This is just an extended episode of the show.
It's just, it's an hour-long episode of the series. It's not really a movie.
Yeah, and it was really underwhelming because I saw the movie a bunch when I was a kid. I had the soundtrack, but I didn't remember anything about it. And then I got in, I was like, that's it? That's what I watched? And to come back into reality as an adult and find out, like, the tonal shift was abrasive and hurt the overall film tremendously. And we can go ahead and say this. It's panned. The U.S. version is. And then on top of that, knowing that they took out what would have been a great overall plot and just mangled it up and threw it away like it didn't matter, like thinking that they knew better for American audiences and made that dog shit.
I want to give you a quote. This was from Kubo Masakuzo. He's one of the Japanese producers or creators, I would imagine. This was him talking about the people at Warner. He said, they gave us some hassle over the script. According to them, the Japanese original does not distinguish clearly enough between the good guys and the bad. Such a movie would not be successful in the multi-ethnic country like the United States.
Oh, my God.
This is what they insisted because the viewers would not know who to identify with and who to cheer on. In other words, the heroes and villains needed to be identified clearly, which is why they made Mewtwo. Mm-hmm. And the evil force, if you will. And they changed it and just brought it down into the mud.
I'm going to go ahead and quote Kyle here. Warner Brothers, if you're listening, no one gives a shit.
Yeah, multi-ethnic country. Since when does that really factor in to things?
It had too many questions, and they didn't want to take a risk on it.
Yeah, right, and they didn't want a character that was multi-layered that could be seen as good and evil at the same time.
It was a calculated financial decision to limit risk when making this movie so they could maximize the profit.
And here's the deal. They would have maximized regardless because Pokemon was such a big draw regardless.
You didn't have to change anything.
They didn't. It would have been just as successful in my opinion, probably even more.
In fact, there was such fan backlash for them taking out that beginning part of Mewtwo's origin that it got re-released on, I think it was Mewtwo Strikes Back or something.
Yes, they made that a short. It was
short movie.
It was that 10 minutes that they cut out from the beginning of this movie.
They put it in as bonus material.
I'm not sure where we go from here, but...
So, Andrew, as a child, you loved this movie, right?
I think I did. I remember being very excited.
How do you feel now?
It was pretty underwhelming. I hate to get on the same train.
You can love Pokemon.
100%.
And you can love the universe that we live in. Obviously, it's thrived. It's come back from this. But we're just strictly talking about the movie.
Think about some series, TV shows that had a movie that was made, like the Simpsons movie. I'm sure there are other ones that we could find. That was so much bigger and different than the series itself. This movie was not. It, like I said, it's just an extension of the series. It's a long, extended episode. There was nothing that special about it, in my opinion. And I really want to watch the Japanese cut now because I feel that it will be, I wouldn't say that much better. But
I saw the beginning that they cut out, and that 10 minutes it's amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't get to watch the final scene where they put in the anti-violence, so I don't know what all the dialogue looked like. But
they changed a lot of it apparently.
Yeah,
so I honestly have a proposition that we find the Japanese version, and for a hold up just a minute, we talk about the Japanese version. Just see if it holds up or if it's significantly better than what we've discussed today.
It's going to be better. There's no way
I think
this
it will,
can be
but
worse.
Like how much better?
Yeah.
Does it completely redeem itself? Is it something that truly makes it hold up at that point, So I think that's something that we should look into doing because I'm curious. I know we can find it online somewhere.
Kyle, does this movie hold up?
Nope.
Simple. I love it. I don't think it holds up at all. Andrew, you're the Pokemon expert. It's up to you.
No. If it was viewed as just like an episode, I'd be like, yeah, fine. But as a movie, as a film, no, it's disappointing. Yeah. And it's a shame because there's a lot of nostalgia attached to this, and it was the first of its kind in a sense that it was the first Pokemon movie. Like, that's a big deal, but it's pretty underwhelming.
It's funny now is they remade it in CGI.
Yes, they did.
And I haven't
I
seen
need to
it.
see that.
I heard it was cut for cut.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm like,
I'm sure it's probably not that
If it's
good,
cut for
but-
cut, I am not watching it.
Like I said, the nostalgia though that's attached to this. If I don't think about the plot and the movie, but if I think of it as a all-inclusive experience with the memorabilia and the things that were sold at Burger King and McDonald's and the toys that came with it, like that brings me to a place where I want to say yes, but no, the movie itself does not.
That's why we created this show, is because you can't live on nostalgia. This thing sucked. And it's like everything else in the world can be fine, but this movie, as an adult, is the nostalgia can't carry you on this. Andrew, do you have any final thoughts on Pokemon? This is your platform to do it.
This movie still doesn't like change how I feel about Pokemon as a franchise as a whole. In order of what I liked most, it was games number 1, 2 the cards, and then 3 the series. So the fact that this first movie was not that great doesn't change anything for me. I still love Pokemon, and honestly, Pokemon to me is really the video game, the music, the graphics, the environment. That is what brought me in and will always have me. Not this movie. This wasn't even a stain. It was just a blip.
Kyle, what would you rate this movie?
I'm gonna give it about a 4.8.
Oh, that's higher than I thought you were going to give it.
Yeah, I was entertained while watching parts of it, but
it was short enough. This is an hour 15 minutes.
Yeah,
so
it's a merciful watch. It's not crazy, but like anything above a 4. And I'm being generous with the 4.8 because I was originally a 3.7, but I did like
the animation's good.
The animations were good, and it, to a certain degree, hits on some parts of the childhood, but not anywhere near enough to be like a movie that you want to watch over again.
I'm going 4.5.
Yeah.
Is it below mediocre to me?
I am going to go a little bit higher just because it doesn't matter.
You're going to do what the people do on IMDb, right? They juice these like nostalgic scores.
I know the score of this one on IMDb. I'm going to do a 5.1. Just get it into the fives and,
above. And you can't do 5.0 because you don't like to do that.
You can't do whole numbers like that. It's 5.1, and that's generous. So,
all right, what is IMDb on it?
I think it's like 6.4.
Oh,
yeah,
my
it's way
God.
too high.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
And that's the U.S. version,
That
right?
is the U.S. version. That is Pokemon the movie.
It's not that good, guys. It's not even, I wouldn't even say it's good. It's passable.
I don't like thinking of the first Pokemon movie in this light. Truly,
it's trash. It's trash.
Yeah, it's not good, and I hate that we all agree and where there's no dissent here, but it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, we hate to bring back your nostalgia and just to shit all over it, but there's still good things to. You go upstairs and play some Pokemon and make yourself feel better.
I might have to go break out Silver version and just start a new story.
I was gonna say, thank God Silver version and not Gold. Like, I'm really glad.
Fuck Gold.
So that puts a pretty little bow on season 3. Kyle, do you know what we got for season 4 coming up?
Friends, summer blockbusters are on the way. We're gonna hit the good ones, the bad ones, and all of them are ugly. There's gonna be some shining examples, I think, in the midst, and some that were sleepers that we never really thought about, but. Just be on the lookout for those. You're not going to want to miss them.
Yeah, that's right. We got summer blockbusters heading your way all summer long. These are going to be a lot of fun to go through. I'm very excited. I know Andrew's excited too. In the meantime, please follow us on social media. Please reach out to us. Let us know what summer blockbusters you'd like to see us record. There's a chance that we get to one. Maybe. If you're lucky. But in the meantime, you know what we do here. We reach into your nostalgic brain, pull the movies from your past to see if they hold up. Today we pulled out Pokemon, And sadly, with a tear in his eye over here, Andrew has decided it does not. So don't watch it. Maybe go watch the Japanese version. Let us know if it's any different. Let us know if you like it. Summer Blockbusters launch in 2 weeks. We will see you next time.